صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: المؤمنون هينون لينون كالجمل الآدم إن قيل إن قاد وإن أنيق على صخرة استناق.
My dear brothers and respected elders, for the protection of the Deen of the Muslims in front of the batil, the hidden help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not come until this ummah comes on to da'wat. Until and unless this ummah comes on to da'wat, until then Allah's hidden help for the help of the believers will not come. Because the promise of Allah of helping with His hidden nusrat, with His hidden help, is based upon the amal of da'wat. Calling the slaves of Allah towards Allah is the way of getting the hidden help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Calling the slaves of Allah towards Allah is the way to get the hidden help of Allah. If this ummah leaves da'wat ila Allah, meaning calling towards Allah, if this ummah leaves calling people towards Allah, then as a challenge to the Muslims, if any sort of power comes, then Allah's help will not be there. Because the incidents that we see where the hidden help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to the prophets and the hidden help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to the Sahaba, we find that the basis of this was the amal of da'wat, calling people towards Allah. The infiradi da'wat, the individual da'wat of a person, is the only means through which the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes. Through worship, miracles can happen, but the help of Allah will not come. The hidden help of Allah are only connected to da'wat ila Allah. When somebody calls the creation of Allah towards Allah, and then some obstacle comes in his deen, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself comes to help the da'i. And this amal of da'wat is the real means through which the Anbiya alayhimus salam and the Sahaba gain direct help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when a person calls towards Allah, then in front of that person comes batil. And when that happens, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself comes to challenge the batil. And Allah Himself comes to challenge the batil. If we ponder over this, if we think about this, if we look into and ponder over the incidents in which the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came, then we will understand what were the means for this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was on a journey with his Sahaba once. And on the way, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave da'wah to one person and called towards the Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. That person said that, who is there as a witness to the fact that you are a prophet? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not say that my Sahaba will bear witness to this. He didn't say that the Sahaba are my witness. But instead he said that you can see that tree on the edge of the valley. This tree will bear witness that I am the Prophet of Allah. He said that this tree will bear witness. This is the hidden help of Allah. If the Sahaba were to bear witness, then this is the apparent help. But the fact that the tree is bearing witness, this is known as the hidden help of Allah. Because under normal circumstances, the tree does not speak. This is what you call help of Allah against the apparent, the hidden help of Allah. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this tree will bear witness that I am the Rasul of Allah. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam called the tree, and the tree came tearing through the ground, came and stood in front of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and 3 times bore witness that undoubtedly you are the Prophet of Allah. Undoubtedly you are the Prophet of Allah. Undoubtedly you are the Prophet of Allah. So that villager, he accepted Islam. These incidents are for us to understand that until the Day of Judgment, the hidden help that Allah will receive, that Allah will send to this ummah, is connected only with infiradi da'wat. Is connected only with infiradi da'wat, individual da'wat. But my dear brothers and respected elders, in this day and age, unfortunately, in this era, people are utilizing all sorts of means in order to spread the word of Islam. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had fixed only the insan as a means of spreading deen. My dear brothers, listen to this carefully. Allah had created insan as a means of conveying the message of deen. Why? Because mujahida is connected only with the insan. This mujahida is the sifat, the quality, the characteristic of insan only. And this cannot be achieved by using any other means to convey the message of deen. So today, unfortunately, people have thought it as more appropriate in a reality to use other means to convey the message of deen. My dear brothers, we need to listen and understand this very carefully. The insan is no longer being used to convey the message of Islam, but instead the da'wat of deen has now been placed into news and leaflets and pamphlets and messages. Whereas apart from insan, all the other creation, the machines, the makhluk, and all other means of conveying messages, none of these things can be mujahid. None of these things can contain mujahida except insan. The Muslims today are exerting their entire energy and resources on dunya, and have moved the conveyance of deen to other means. At the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, there was no other way of conveying the message of Deen except the humans, the Muslims themselves. That they were themselves the inviters towards Deen. Today the insan is no longer being used for the da'wat of Deen. And instead the strength and efforts of the insan are being exerted on the dunya. And instead, for the conveyance of Deen, we are utilizing the most convenient, easy, and in fact the free ways, those ways which are completely free now. And that Muslim whom Allah, out of all the creations, so today we are using the free, the cheap or even the free ways of conveying the message of Deen, whereas Allah had made insan, rather the Muslims, the most valuable of all of the creations, and fixed this means as a way of conveyance of Deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fixed insan only for the tabligh of Deen. Allah created and sent insan as a means of conveyance of Deen. But instead other means have come into place that are being used to convey Deen. And the Muslims, they have moved away from this responsibility, this maqsad, this purpose. Only a Muslim can practically convey Deen. The practical Deen can only be presented by a Muslim. No other creation can practically show and convey Deen to the rest of the world. Jinnat are there but we can't see them. Angels are there but we cannot see them. Even if we see them, even if you can see the angels, they do not have the same commands as the insan have. So the practical Deen can only be conveyed by the humans. Other means can spread the information of Deen, but not Deen itself. So other means can be used to convey information on Deen, but not Deen itself. Ali radhiyallahu anhu went to Iraq. The people of Iraq said, tell us about how Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made wudu. And then Ali radhiyallahu anhu said that, go and get me some water in a pot, and then take me to a raised platform so I can show you how to do wudu. So by doing this practically, he showed all the people of Iraq how to do wudu according to the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is called da'wat. This is called da'wat. He didn't say that get a pen and pencil or pen and paper and I'll detail you the sunnats of wudu. He didn't say this. He didn't say note this down or write this down. But instead, show me a high place, a raised place. Accordingly, he was placed on a high wall and all the people of Iraq gathered. Ali radhiyallahu anhu, just as he had seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam making wudu, in exactly the same way he showed how to make wudu to the people of Iraq. The men, the women, the old, the young, everyone who was present, they saw how and they learned exactly how to make wudu. So da'wat will be effective only when a Muslim himself gives da'wat. That's when da'wat will take effect. When a Muslim himself practically, physically gives da'wat. So as I mentioned, that all of the means are not the real ways of spreading Deen. The spreading of Deen the means of this is only the Muslims. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam give da'wat to the kings, but he sent a jamaat to give da'wat. It wasn't that, okay, we can't reach the king, therefore we just send a letter. But Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually sent the Sahaba to the kings. Rabi ibn Amr radhiyallahu anhu, he went to the kings to give da'wat. The people of the king said that you can't reach the king. You tell us, what do you want? We'll convey the message. He said, no, Allah has sent us and we need to speak directly to the king. We have to tell the king ourselves what the message is. A letter was sent with a jamaat to Kisra. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that he has not torn up the letter that I sent, he tore up his own country. So we find that with the amal of da'wat, the jamaat that was sent, a letter was sent. Just a letter was torn up, nothing was done to the other people, but just a letter was torn up. Now in the challenge of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself tore up the whole country. Who tore up the letter? Allah tore up his country. Because as I said, the hidden help of Allah is only with da'wat. But today, unfortunately, this da'wat has moved over to other means apart from the Muslims. People are thinking that if we can just send this message, convey this message, what is the point of going ourselves? When there's so many means of conveying messages now, why do we need to physically go ourselves? When there's so many means now, when there's so many convenient ways, easy ways, why do we need to physically go and exert so much energy to convey the message? Before the azan started, as in before the amal was actually given, people, the Sahaba, the Sahaba used to face a difficulty where they would have to go to each and every person's house and call them towards salah. So the person who would first be given da'wat, he would come to the masjid and sit and wait. The Sahaba then said that going one by one to everyone and inviting them towards salah, the Sahaba then said that nowadays we use certain ways of gathering the people for whatever reason. There's many ways, many means through which we can gather the people. It happened amongst the Arabs, amongst the Quraysh, that any reason they needed to gather the people, they would use certain means to gather them. Like for example, beating the drum. So one of them suggested, why don't we beat the drum at the time of Salah so that people gather? So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that, no, this is the way of the Yahud. So we will not utilize this way. We will not use this means as gathering the people. The Sahaba then said, Sarangi. I have no idea what a sarangi is. Trumpet. I think so. Inshallah. So then said we blow a trumpet and said, no, this is the way of the Christians. Yeah, it's a trumpet. Then the Sahaba said, then we light a fire, and the smoke that comes up, people will see the smoke and then they will come and gather. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that lighting the fire, this is the way of the fire worshippers. This is the way of the fire worshippers, so we're not going to use this means either. So therefore we will not adopt this way either. My dear brothers, we really have to think over this incident. That whatever the means were at that time to gather the people, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam rejected all of them. Neither this nor that. We will not use any of these ways to gather the people. But then what should we do now? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not say that we will use these means because we are using it for a good cause. Didn't say this. But instead said that no, these are not the ways that we will use to gather the people. So then what should we do? So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he delayed the matter and said that let's think over it. The Sahaba were thinking that what other ways could there be? If these are the only ways to gather the people and we're not allowed to use these, then what can we do? So then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that in the meantime, just go and gather the people as we've been doing, one by one. So the Sahaba, they had consent for this. And with this fikr and the mujahidah that they were doing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed the azan to a sahabi in a dream. In a dream, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed how to do adhan. Sahabi saw an angel in his dream that he saw that he is Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Rabbi. In his dream, was walking around in his dream with a trumpet, and he met this angel. Sorry, the angel was moving around with it. So this Sahabi in his dream said, "Will you sell this trumpet?" And he said that, yes, what do you need it for? He said, I want to use it to call the people towards Salah. So I want to use it for that purpose. In his dream he's saying this. So the angel said, no. He said that this thing is not appropriate to use for Salah. To call people towards Salah. Don't use this. It's not appropriate. Then he said, come, I will show you how to gather the people for Salah. So the angel then showed Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Rabbi. He showed him how to make adhan and said that this is the way to gather the people for Salah. Whatever the means existed at the time, he said that don't use any of these means. Rather, do it the way I show you. So then he put his fingers into his ears and said the words of the adhan. Abdullah ibn Zayd radhiyallahu anhu, he learnt these words in his dream, and then in the morning he said to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that I saw an angel in my dream, and he rejected selling the trumpet to me, and then told me that this is how you gather people for Salah. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and this is the azan. That Allah has given us the azan as a means of calling people towards Salah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared the azan as the da'wat ta'amma, the complete da'wat. The azan is the complete da'wat. Wherever the voice of the muazzin reaches to, the creation in that way makes dua for the person who's doing the adhan. So when did this azan come? When people were giving dawat themselves physically and at the same time rejecting the other means and ways, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave azan as a gift, as a means. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba did not use any other means of dawat. So I'm saying all this to explain that dawat is not just done in any way that you feel suitable. This is not dawat. That use any means to convey the message is called dawat. No, this is not the case. It's not even called dawat. Dawat is only when you yourself go to invite the people. Only this is classified as dawat, where Muslims themselves are utilized physically in conveying the message. Just by conveying a message using other means, this does not come under the category of dawat. This does not absolve a person from the responsibility of giving dawat. Mujahida is important, and mujahida is only the quality connected with insan, and the promise of hidayat is upon mujahida. The promise of hidayat is on mujahida, and mujahida is connected only to the insan. And the means, other means that we see, there is no connection with these means and mujahida. Therefore there is no hidayat connected to them. All the alternative ways that we see today, there is no mujahida connected with these means. There is no quality of hidayat in them except insan. Insan is the only thing with which mujahida is connected. This is the gist of all of what I'm explaining. Apart from insan, none of the other creations can be mujahida. This is why I am saying khuruj, striving in the way of Allah. This is the real sunnat of spreading Deen. So striving in the way of Allah is the real sunnat and the way of spreading Deen. This is the real sunnah way of spreading the message of Islam. In this era now, this sunnat is being deserted by the Muslims, by this ummah. This sunnat is being deserted by the Muslims, and there is no alternative to this sunnat. In fact, there is no alternative to any sunnat of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But dear brothers, listen to this carefully. There is no alternative to the sunnat of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in any action. If a person says that instead of the miswak, let's use a toothbrush as an alternative sunnat, there is no alternative. But dear brothers, you have to listen and understand what I'm saying. Listen very carefully what I'm saying. A toothbrush cannot become an alternative to the sunnat of miswak. It cannot be an alternative to the miswak. Miswak itself only is sunnat. Only the miswak is sunnat. Those 70 virtues in hadith are connected only with the miswak. The remembering and the uttering of La ilaha illallah at the time of death is only connected with the miswak. It will happen with the miswak, not with the toothbrush. Why? Because the miswak is sunnat. A person cannot say that you can use the toothbrush also, because with that you clean your teeth as well. The masnoon way, the sunnat way of cleaning the teeth is with the miswak. In exactly the same way, the way with which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was sent to do the effort of da'wat, how can there be an alternative to that? If there is no alternative to a miswak, how can there be an alternative to the way of effort of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Just like miswak only is sunnat, in the same way, the effort of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the only way to physically go and give da'wat. There is no alternative to this. The shaitan has created this thought in our hearts that striving is not important, moving around is not important, because in those days the Sahaba used to move around because there was no other means. Today, in this era, there's so many other ways, very convenient ways. Therefore, to actually move around physically is not important. This is the biggest deception that we have fallen into today. It's the biggest deception, that moving around is no longer important because there are very convenient and easy ways of conveying the message. Mullah Ilyas used to say that when Mullah Ilyas used to say that if you use the cultural meaning, the other ways and common ways of conveying Deen, then the know-how of Deen is spread, but Deen itself is not spread. Information of Deen is spread, but Deen itself is not spread. And using other means in the attempt of da'wat, those means will benefit and progress, but Deen itself will not progress. In order to spread Deen, we have to bring our effort onto the method of conveying Deen that the Sahaba were on. Dawat is only the way the Sahaba did Dawat. There is no other way classified as Dawat. There is no alternative to this. Only the way the Sahaba gave Dawat, that is considered Dawat. Any other way is not considered Dawat. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made the Sahaba active, physically active, where they would physically make effort. That you take the Dawat of Deen and spread throughout the lands. As Umar used to say, that if there was no moving around and the striving in the cause of Deen, I wouldn't like to live in this world. He used to say, if there was no striving in Deen, I would not like to live in this world. If there was no striving in the way of Allah in this world, I would not like to live in this world. My dear brothers and respected elders, for Muslims to have istiqamat, steadfastness of Deen, and the protection of Deen against the batil, the hidden help that we need for this is based upon the combination of our da'wat and ibadat. The condition is that da'wat and ibadat are both done together. These both things are done together. To get the hidden help of Allah, it is important that we gather these two things, da'wat and ibadat. It is important to gather both of these things, do both of these things. You cannot do one of these. Only then the hidden help of Allah will come. Because Allah has mentioned in the Quran, Allah has mentioned in His Quran that whose deen can be better than his, who while giving da'wat does amal. That while giving da'wat does amal. Whose deen can be better than his? The ulama explain. The ulama explaining that this is a conditional ayat. That nobody's deen can be better than that person's who does da'wat while doing ibadat. Abdullah ibn Hudhafa, when he was captured by the king of Rome, the king really desired deeply that this Sahabi become a Christian. My dear brothers, the decline of the Muslims is only because of leaving Dawat. That when this ummah will no longer, when this ummah will stop becoming a da'i ummah, an inviting ummah, it will become madu, it will become invited. Abu Bakr anhu, if he did not send out the Jamaat of Usama based upon the majority of the Sahaba that don't send the Jamaat yet, and then he would have thought that okay, let's not send the Jamaat out yet, then what would have happened? Today people think that whatever the majority of the opinion, we should do amal on this. That's what people even say and think nowadays. So the Sahaba, most of them were saying that this is not the time of sending Jamaat out, rather people should stay back and protect Medina. This is not now the time of people going out. Most of the Sahaba were giving this opinion. Even Hazrat Umar who said that at this moment keep this Jamaat back. That there is a danger for Medina that it will be attacked. But Abu Bakr anhu, he remained firm on his decision that no, we will send the Jamaat out. That we will send the Jamaat out. And all of the other eminent Sahaba, the great Sahaba, their opinion was that no, don't send the Jamaat out. There is a risk of attack on Medina. Abu Bakr said that, look, if a small deficiency comes in Deen and Abu Bakr stay alive, this cannot happen. So he remained firm on his decision that we have to send out the Jamaat of Usama. Hazrat Umar said later, he said that if Abu Bakr did not remain firm on his decision at the time, and he would have changed the decision based on our opinion, then today this whole ummah would have left Islam. My dear brothers, today people are saying my dear brothers, even today, if this ummah does not come on to Dawat, if this ummah leaves Khuruj, then this ummah will start to leave Islam. Because only through Dawat ilallah can this ummah remain upon Deen. This is the only way of stopping the ummah, the decline of this ummah. Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha herself said that if my father did not remain firm upon his decision, then this ummah would have entirely become murtad. This entire ummah would have left Islam, and not a single person would have remained that would remember Allah. Wherever the Jamaat of Usama went, the Muslims who had left Islam, they reverted back to Islam. Wherever the Jamaat of Usama went, those who had left Islam started to revert back to Islam. The people themselves said that if as we thought and as we had been told that Islam is now finished with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then such a big Jamaat would not have come out from Medina. So it's impossible that Islam is not finished. Because the shaitan, through people, whispered to these people that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has gone, therefore Islam has gone. So people left Islam. But Abu Bakr anhu, he sent out the Jamaat of Usama radiallahu anhu. So as I was saying, Dawat is the only means to save the Muslims from leaving Islam. and to keep them firm upon Deen. Dawat is the only way to protect and save the Muslims from leaving the fold of Islam and to stop the decline of the Muslims. So, as I was saying, Abdullah ibn Huzafa radhiyallahu anhu, the king of Rome said that you become a Christian. He said no. He said there is no way I will accept Christianity. He said that I will give you half of my kingdom. So what did he say? He said no, give me your entire kingdom. And you, on top of that, you give me all the kingdoms of Arabs. But even then I will not leave my deen. My dear brothers, think now, ponder today in this era upon the smallest of things, the smallest of wealth and the smallest of status, a person sells his deen. What does the person say? Now what can we do? The halat is such, the condition is such, we have no choice. We've got no choice, we have to. So Abdullah ibn Huzafa radhiyallahu anhu, from what he said, the king became disheartened. So king, then he realized that this person is not going to leave Islam. So he said, I'm going to kill you. So he said, then kill me. He said, kill me, but I'm not going to leave my deen. This is the real thing, my dear brothers. A person remains steadfast on his deen. A person remains strong on his deen who is a da'i. This is why it is said that whose deen can't be better than his, who while giving dawat does amal. If the batil comes as a challenge to him, then Allah Himself will come as a challenge to that batil. So a person remains steadfast on his deen only through dawat. And also remember this, that when the Muslim leaves dawat, then the ghair, the non-Muslims, will invite that person towards his deen, towards their deen. Listen, Ka'b ibn Malik radhiyallahu anhu, he stayed back from going to the expedition of Tabligh. Very severe conditions came upon him. Very severe conditions came upon him. The whole of Medina upset with him. Allah upset with him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam upset with him. What happened? Only that he didn't go out in the expedition of Tabligh. Whereas in Tabligh there wasn't even any fighting. Why was there such a severe condition put upon him? Why were people, including Allah, so upset? The whole of Medina becoming upset with him. What was such a great sin that he committed? He went to all of the expeditions, except Tabligh. Though he was not a Badri Sahabi. The reason why such a severe condition was placed upon him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show this ummah until the day of judgment that if you delay in going and fulfilling the taqazas of deen, the requirements of deen, this will become a means of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becoming angry with the ummah. Because when you leave the effort of deen, this is a way of the diminishing and the destruction of deen. If, for an example, let's say for a moment, an i'lan is made that close the bazaar of Delhi. You see many times strikes take place for whatever reason. And what will happen, the strike will take place, that all of the bazaars of Delhi will be closed just for one day. Now you tell me, on that day, imagine how much loss the community will feel economically just for that one day. Just for one day. Just think, ponder. Millions and billions of rupees of loss just for closing the bazaar for one day. Whereas this is nothing. You open the bazaar to earn, the shops are open to earn. It never happens. A shop doesn't open for a day, people die. But if for one day the entire city's bazaar is closed, what effect will this have on the businesses and on the world of business in Delhi? How much loss will be experienced? Now imagine, not just for one day, but if Muslim leaves the effort of Deen completely, how much loss Deen will experience in the world. It's not a small thing that Hazrat Ka'b ibn Malik, he went to all of the expeditions but did not go to Tabligh. Why so upset? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show that if you reduce anything in the striving of Deen, this is the real way of the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming upon this ummah. By not going out in the path of Allah is a direct way of gaining the anger of Allah. Why? Because not going out in the path of Allah is a means through which Deen is destroyed. So Ka'b ibn Malik was boycotted by all of the people of Medina. No salam, no speech, no talking, no salam, no kalam. The king of Ghassan, he found out. He learned that Ka'b ibn Malik, one Sahabi, did not go to Tabuk, and because of this, all of the people of Medina boycotted him. And even his prophet is upset with him. So he thought, this is a good opportunity. Let me take this opportunity and invite this person, this Sahabi, towards our Deen. My dear brothers, this is a ajib thing, an unusual thing. So he wrote a letter to Ka'b ibn Malik. What do you say? That we find that your friends and your brothers have really done injustice to you. So instead, because you don't deserve something else, you come to us. So Ka'b ibn Malik, he read this letter once, and then he threw it into the fire pit. That there was a fire burning in the pit, and he threw the letter into the pit and said that one problem has not become resolved and another problem comes upon me. Okay. Why did this happen? Because when a Muslim, he sits down from his responsibility of the da'wat of Deen, then the non-Muslims will become hopeful upon leading the Muslims astray. Which is the reason why I said that da'wat is a means of remaining steadfast on Deen. And also, again, I'm repeating that da'wat is only da'wat when it is done upon the way of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Sahaba. Only their way of da'wat is considered da'wat. Only their way is considered da'wat. The way that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Sahaba adopted. Therefore, the first thing we need to bring our da'wat upon the way of Nabuwat. This is the first thing that we need to do. Bring da'wat upon the way and the mizaj of Nabuwat. So what is the way of the da'wat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The first and the most important thing in this is that a da'i should have broadness in his intention and broadness in his heart. Because if a person's heart is big and broad, then the effect of this is that he will have a mumiyat in his da'wat. Meaning you will accommodate every kind of person in that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never looked at the status of a person before giving da'wat. Never thought that this person is less important than that person. My dear brothers, infradi da'wat, which is what I've been mentioning, wasn't done on the basis of status of people. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, having such a high status, he didn't look at his status and then gave da'wat to only high level people, but even he's given da'wat to a slave. He's given da'wat to a slave. On the way back from Taif, he took refuge in a garden. The owner of that garden, he sent a slave with some grapes. And the slave who brought the grapes wasn't like a slave, but from some sort of noble lineage. He was such a slave that he was from the lowest amongst the lowest. His generations were all slaves. That kind of slave. And he was such a slave that he was actually owned by two people. But even then, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave da'wat to him. So the most important thing in da'wat is amumiyat. Accommodate every kind of person. Every kind of person you accommodate. Even during Hijrat, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose the path upon which there were looters and criminals. In simple words, the baddies. He did not say that, no, let's not go that way because there is danger of our wealth and our lives. He said, no, we'll go the way of these people, so that we can give da'wah to these people on the way. So wus'at, broadness of the heart, is important. One of them was called Muhannan. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose the way during the safar, the journey of Hijrat. It was a very dangerous journey in itself. He left hiding. He was followed. They were chased. And there were so many dangers on the way. But Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we're going to go the way of these looters, so that we can give da'wah to these people on the way. If today somebody was to say that don't go on this route because it is dangerous, no Jamaat will go that way. Because we go out in Tabligh thinking we will learn something, we're going out to learn. If you're going out to learn, what is the point of going on the ways where there are danger? Let's go the easy route, the convenient route. My dear brothers and respected elders, this striving in the way of Allah is to connect the people of Allah to Allah. To learn Deen is one small part, a small responsibility in the way of Allah. And it is just one of the initial stages and steps in striving in the way of Allah. Khuruj is not to learn Deen. Khuruj, the purpose of Khuruj is to save the entire mankind from the destruction of Akhirat and to connect the entire creation to Allah. Learning the halal and the haram and the basic masail and the basics of Deen, this is just the initial stages in Tabligh. Hazrat Ji Rahmatullah used to say, this is the alif bata, the ABC of this effort only. A person does not go out in Tabligh. People think, I only went out to learn namaz. If I learn namaz, I don't need to go in Jamaat again. And there are people who say, well, I know Deen already, so therefore why do I need to go out in the path of Allah? I already know what is right and wrong. I pray 5 times a day, I earn halal, I've done Hajj, I give zakat, I fast in Ramadan. So what is the point of going out to Khuruj? I already know all of this. People think that this is the purpose of going out in Tabligh. So people will say that what's the point of going out in Tabligh? I'm already on Deen. My dear brothers, Khuruj is for the completion of our Deen and to bring the entire creation onto Deen. This is what Khuruj is for. This is why at the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the new people who would accept Islam, they will be sent out in the path of Allah with the Sahaba. And in the initial days they would learn Deen. In the initial days they would learn Deen. And thereafter they would invite towards Deen. So the most important thing is amumiyat in Dawat. That Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never used to think low of anyone, think that what's the point of giving Dawat to this person. And at the time of Hijrat, the emigration to Medina, he chose the way of the looters to go for his Hijrat. And therefore, on the way he met 2 of them. And they both accepted Islam. Think, my dear brothers. The whole point of mentioning this incident, that when you intend to go to any country, and you leave your place for this, the dua you should make, that, oh Allah, I want to go to invite your slaves of such and such country to call towards your Deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of this intention, will soften the hearts of those brothers and the people of that country to such an extent that they will accept your da'wat. But if a person sitting in his own house said, let's send a message, there are be'aqal people in this world today, that we should start an Islamic channel for this, to make it easier. Hazrat Ji Rahmatullah used to say that if for the effort of haqq you adopt the batil means, batil will flourish but not haqq. Haqq will not spread. In this era, in this day and age, even the intellectual people have completely misunderstood Dawat. And they think that you use any means to convey the message, this is Dawat. Whereas we have already learned that, looking at the lives of the Sahaba,